Hey, Alan Rowland. What I'm going to do today, we're going to change our timing a little bit, not our focus. We're still going to be talking about some of the politicians, or I should say I'm going to be talking about some of the politicians from Walker County and Jasper, Alabama, but we're going to change the timing of it a little bit. Most of my presentations in the past here, this past several presentations, have dealt with early Walker County, but now we're going to get into rather modern day Alabama, or I think it's rather modern day Alabama and Walker County anyway, and where our focus is going to go. One of my parents' friends anyway, was that of Congressman Tom Bevill. So let's go to our narrative here, and we'll explain a little bit about the early life of Mr. Bevill, and that's what we call him, Mr. Bevill. His proper name was Tom Donald Fike Bevill, born on the 27th of March in 1921, born in Townley, Alabama. And if you're not familiar with that, if you're not familiar with Walker County, Townley, Alabama is in Walker County. And Mr. Bevill passed away on the 28th of March in 2005 at the age of 84 in Jasper, Alabama. He's buried at Oak Hill Cemetery. And I'll show you a photograph of the burial site in a little bit. All right, he served as the Alabama legislator, or you may want to refer to that as a representative in Montgomery from 1958 to 1966. So this is in the Alabama legislature, which is present in Montgomery, Alabama. On those dates there, 58 through 66, and I can remember it very well. During that time, I served as a page boy for Mr. Bevill. Perhaps you'd better recognize it as a page. I think the year of that was 1964. Maybe it was 1965. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, but I would travel down with Mr. Bevill, drive down with him. I was not old enough to drive, did not even have a driver's license. Drive down with him, usually somebody else would drive, and drive back. And we did that every day, during the time in which I was a page, or in which the Alabama legislature was in session there. And that was a wonderful experience there. I was paid by the state of Alabama just a small amount of money for my efforts there. And then later on, my brother became a page for Mr. Bevill. But I can remember some of that very, very well, even though it's been, 60 years ago or something like that anyway. I was a young man, and it was not Mr. Bevill, but it would be one of his adjacent partners, one of the representatives that would sit next to him, and they would say, hey, I've got something to do, and they would say, you vote for me. And I would sit at that representative's legislature's desk and use a little toggle switch there, and you could toggle right to vote yes or toggle left to vote no, but I was always given the instructions to always vote yes and never change that, and I didn't deviate from that. But that was always kind of exciting, making the vote for that particular person and looking up on the voter display board and seeing how that vote registered, which was always an affirmative there. And as I said, my brother did the same time. I remember one other account there when one of the legislators, not Mr. Bevill, but one of the representatives asked me to go downtown on Dexter Avenue and pick up a sandwich for him at a deli there. And I went down, and he'd given me a little bit of money, but it was not enough money to cover the charge, and I had to dig into my own pockets, as a little 15-year-old boy, and come up with the extra amount of money to pay for that representative's lunch there. So that was kind of interesting with that. All right, so let's go back to our camera here and get it away from me. That was from 1958 to 1966. During that time, Mr. Bevill had the appearance such as this. I'll tell you about his early life in just a little bit. Now, where the Alabama legislature met and where I served as a page was in the old State House. Now, this is the old Capitol building. It's not the State House where our House and our Senate meet today, but this is the old one, and you can still go in there and see the old legislative meeting rooms there. And that's kind of interesting. I did that not very long ago. And back we go here to our presentation. And Mr. Bevill was a Democrat. A 15-term U.S. congressman, served a total of 30 years, longer than any Alabama congressman in the history of Alabama. And from 1967 to 1973, he represented the 7th Congressional District. From 1973 to 1979, he represented the 4th Congressional District here in Alabama. This is what he looked like, such as that. All right, nice looking man here. And we'll continue on with the presentation for Mr. Bevill. He was born in Townley, Alabama in 1921, but he attended Walker County High School. And I attended Walker County High School myself. It's not Walker County High School now. Since that time, it became Walker High School. Now it's known as Jasper High School. But he went to Walker County High School in the 1930s. I went in the 1960s, so I was 30 years behind him. When he graduated, he went to University of Alabama and was part of their School of Commerce Business Administration, and he finished there, too. He attended University of Alabama Law School. Kind of interesting, and a very fine law school. World War II broke out in 1941, and for Mr. Bevill, after his college, he joined the United States Army. He was an officer. This was during World War II. He participated in the Normandy invasion. Here's a likeness of Tom Bevill. I was trying to read the rank there. The photograph is not that clear. If you look at the rank, which is on the collar right there, and of course the emblem here on the hat indicates an officer hat, and it looks to me like it's first lieutenant, but I can't tell very well with that. And you can see the Judge Advocate General brass, which is right down here. Okay, so he was an officer there and served in the Normandy invasion. Later, he was a member of the United States Army Reserve, and for many, many years, I've got some photographs of him right here. Here's Mr. Bevill. I dug these out of my personal collection anyway, and this is showing you, I think it is James Hamilton, Colonel Hamilton, who was right here, and here's Major Tom Bevill here. This is Major Kano Rear, who was attorney in Jasper for many, many years. He's passed away now. I found this photograph. In fact, I found so many photographs of Mr. Bevill, and back in the Army Reserve, it was just too many to include in this, but I did a couple of them here. And I'm not sure who this individual is over on this side, but he's promoting Tom Bevill. Here's Tom Bevill to Lieutenant Colonel. This happens to be my own father. This is my dad, David Rowland. He was being promoted to Major at that time. This is Melvin Kacharis, Babe Kacharis, Sam Cooner. I can remember all of those men very, very well. They're much older than I. But anyway, my dad and my family, and of course, here's my dad right here. We moved to Jasper, Alabama in 1956. I was 7 years of age at that time. My dad was a member of the Army Reserves with Tom Bevill. And my dad's moving here to Jasper was very much dependent on Tom Bevill and Sam Murphy. And my dad was a principal at Warrior High School, and they were all in the Army Reserve together. And Mr. Bevill and Sam Murphy encouraged my dad, why don't you take the vacancy of the presidency of Walker College? And my dad did so, and as a result of that, my family moved to Jasper here. And so anyway, they were all very, very close with each other. Now, so we move along from here, and I want to tell you something else about this. I'll go back to myself here. Tom Bevill was a Democrat. He was a moderate Democrat. I'll tell you some of the things he was pro and against in just a few minutes here. But my dad was a Republican. So that was kind of strange there. And here we had these two men here, my dad and Tom Bevill, who were just best of friends, but one was a Democrat and one was a Republican. And it's too bad we can't do that today, in our friendships and in our politics. But we just don't do that today. On the other hand, when Tom Bevill ran for a United States House of Representatives legislator, he ran against Carl Elliott. Carl Elliott was a Democrat from Jasper, and a very well-known, a very popular Democrat here. And my dad, who was a Republican, sided with Tom Bevill. And and Tom Bevill won the election. But this caused a little rift between the Elliott family and between the Rowland family here. I don't know. Maybe that disagreement still exists today. I just don't know. Although, Carl Elliott's son, John Elliott, I was very good friends with him. But anyway, so let's go back to our camera here. And for Mr. Bevill, he served as a chairman of the United States House Appropriations Committee on Energy and Water Development. This gave him access to quite a bit of money, and he would use this money to help support Alabama and Walker County and the South in general. Many people that were negative on Mr. Bevill referred to him as the King of Pork, which that did not bother him. He appreciated that little title there. But he developed many projects for his district, And this would provide funding for the Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway. And of course, I think that's beneficial. I personally do. Here's a photograph of Tennessee Tom Bigby. That's actually the lock there named Tom Bevill. And he also supported the Marshall Space Flight Center, which is at Redstone Arsenal in Madison County in Montgomery. I mean, not in Montgomery, in Huntsville, Alabama. He was responsible for the Little River Canyon National Preserve. In fact, I was there just a couple of months ago. That's a nice place to visit if you've got some spare time on Saturday or Sunday. Here we go. We'll continue with this. For Tom Bevill, he answered the first 911 call ever made. And this was on the 16th of February in 1968. And it was in Haleville, Alabama. Here, as I told you a few minutes ago, he was a moderate conservative Democrat. He was opposed to abortion, opposed to gun control. In 2010, he was inducted into the Alabama Hall of Fame, Men's Hall of Fame. That was in 2010. All right, so we'll move on. I'll show you some of the other things that Mr. Bevill was responsible for, or at least bear his name. Bevill State Community College. This is on 5 campuses in Alabama. You have the Jasper campus. This is a photograph that's taken in Jasper campus. And we also have campuses there in Summerton and Fayette and Hamilton and Pickens County. All right. If you go to the Jasper campus at Bevill State, you'll see Bevill Hall. That is named for Tom Bevill. Bevill Hall there. It's a nursing building today, used for nursing and health science classes there. Bevill Field. This is a Jasper Airport. This was part of it. Walker County Airport, I mean to say, not Jasper Airport. So all of these, were a part of Mr. Bevill's legacy. And I'll tell you that Mr. Bevill was a very, shall we say, down-to-earth individual. I saw him quite often. And in fact, he would come by, he and his wife, Lou, Mr. and Miss Bevill, would visit my parents. And we lived on Valley Road, and he was so frequently a visitor there, I just never thought anything about it. Mr. Bevill was just like the next door neighbor, coming to visit in our house. And he and his wife would share drinks with my mother and dad, and my brother and I would walk in, and my dad would say, the Bevills are here. And my brother and I would walk in and say, hello, and then we'd just go out and play. It was just not a big deal. But anyway, I always enjoyed him. Just a very, very relaxed individual. When we moved to Jasper, we would visit the Bevills. They had 3 children, and Donnie and Susan and Patty, and they lived in a very, very unpretentious house. It was located where Delta Transfer is now. If you go to the street behind Delta Transfer, up on the hill up here, and that's where the house was. It is not there today anyway, on the old Russellville Road. And we would visit there, and all the children would play together. And then later the Bevills moved down to Alabama Avenue. This is where their son, I always knew him as Donnie, but I think he's referred to as Don Bevill today. He's an attorney in Jasper. That's where his law office is. And Don played basketball at Walker College. All right. And then later the Bevills moved up to Pinecrest, up to the top of the hill, the very top of the hill in Pinecrest. And I do not have a photograph of that. All right. I want to tell you about another incident here. Mr. Bevill was always very good for Walker County and Jasper in Alabama. And I was working at Walker College at that time and was a very strong supporter of Mr. Bevill. But I can remember one day, it was late in the afternoon, I was out on the campus, and a man came up to me, and I'd never seen him before, and we started talking, and he said he was a reporter. And some reporter for I later found out for a liberal paper or magazine, in the North, and he was just trying to seek out information on Mr. Bevill. And of course, he was pumping me for the information, and I was saying, Mr. Bevill has always been very good for Walker County, very good for this college, very good for Jasper, and I thought everything was okay. And then later I found out when that article was published that it was used against Mr. Bevill. And it gave me a very, very strong feeling about reporters and always being very careful here when I was ever questioned in the future about a reporter. All right, from Mr. Bevill, And we'll go back to my camera here. And the Bevills are buried, as I said earlier, in Oak Hill Cemetery. Mr. Bevill died in 2005. It's a nice plot here in Oak Hill. It's in a kind of newer section. This is a Bevill monument here. And Mr. Bevill lies in rest here, right here. And his wife, Lou, is over here. She was a magnificent pianist, and if you look at her grave marker, it has a piano engraved upon the grave marker itself. And Mr. Bevill's parents are over on this side. So, be sure and take the time to go over there and see that. And a close-up here showing you the burial site here of Mr. Bevill, and it just tells you, notice at the top here, and we have the congressional seal here, and it just tells you about the life of Mr. Bevill here. All right, I hope you enjoyed that presentation here on Tom Bevill. And again, I like to explore these politicians from Jasper and Walker County. We're getting into a later politician here. Mr. Bevill died in 2005, and perhaps we'll have some more that follow in his footsteps, shall we say. All righty, thank you very much for your attention.